Hello? Since the very beginning of its existence, humanity has turned its gaze to the sky, to mountains, and to oceans. Yet, we have often overlooked one of the greatest miracles right in front of our eyes: insects. Within their tiny bodies, they carry the secrets of millions of years of evolution. As the unseen workers of ecosystems, they keep our world standing. Bees that transform a drop of nectar into pollination, ants that build flawless colonies, beetles that bring dead soil back to life. All of these creatures play a revolutionary role in the balance of the planet. In this episode, we will step into the mysterious and astonishing world of these micro-heroes of nature together. Who are insects? The silent army of millions of species. The vast majority of all animal species that have ever lived, or still live today, are, in fact, insects. Throughout evolutionary history, they have survived shifting climates, drifting continents, natural disasters, and human impact. Today, around 1 million insect species have been scientifically described, but this is only what has been recorded. The real number is estimated to be between 5 and 30 million. This tells us that insects sit at the very heart of biodiversity on Earth. Insects belong to the phylum Arthropoda and the class Insecta. They share a characteristic body plan divided into 3 main segments: head, bearing antennae, eyes, and mouth parts; thorax, carrying legs and usually wings; abdomen, housing internal organs and reproductive structures. They have 6 legs and typically 1 or 2 pairs of wings. Their exoskeleton is made of chitin, which protects them from both physical and chemical stresses in their environment. This basic structural plan has allowed insects to adapt to an astonishing variety of habitats. They are not limited to forests or meadows. We find them in city sewers, polar tundra, desert sands, mountain peaks, and coastal zones. Some species complete their entire life cycle in a handful of soil, while others undertake migrations that span thousands of kilometers. Evolutionary keys to their success. The extraordinary success of insects rests on several biological advantages. Micro size. Their small bodies reduce energy demands and allow them to exploit narrow ecological niches. Short reproductive cycles. Some species reach maturity in only a few days. This accelerates natural selection and fuels rapid adaptation to environmental changes. Versatile mouthparts. Piercing, chewing, sucking, and siphoning mouthparts enable a wide variety of feeding strategies. Flight. The ability to fly helps them escape predators, find mates, and colonize new habitats. The familiar and the invisible. We tend to think first of bees, ants, butterflies, flies, and ladybirds when we picture insects. Yet many of the most crucial species in ecosystem functioning are the ones we barely ever see. Soil-dwelling insects, for example, are essential in nutrient cycling, but remain hidden beneath our feet. Moreover, not every insect is a pest. The term pest is a human invention, used for species that harm crops, health, or comfort. In nature, there is no good or bad insect, only species fulfilling their ecological roles, their roles in ecosystem functioning. Insects contribute to the living earth in countless ways. Pollination. Many plants can only reproduce thanks to specific insect visitors. Nutrient cycling. They help break down organic waste, clear carcasses, and enrich soils. Predator-prey balance. Some insects regulate the populations of others, maintaining ecological equilibrium. Soil engineering. Ants and termites modify soil structure, improving water infiltration and fertility. In this sense, insects operate like a silent but indispensable workforce. Each one turns its own tiny wheel in the great machinery of nature. Without them, flowers would not bloom as they do. Soil would not breathe, and life, at least as we know it, could not continue. Nature's cleaning crew. Detritivores and scavenger species. In nature, nothing truly goes to waste. The death of one organism becomes the starting point of life for many others. At the center of this cycle are often overlooked but absolutely essential creatures. Detritivorous and scavenging insects. These insects feed on animal carcasses, dung, decaying plant matter, and organic debris. Without them, forests would be buried under layers of dead leaves, carcasses would lie intact for weeks, and the landscape would be saturated with odor, pathogens, and uncontrolled microbial growth. In short, nature would become unlivable. Dung beetles, cultural icons, ecological powerhouses. Dung beetles, family Scarabidae, are among the most iconic decomposer insects. They collect animal droppings, roll them into balls, and bury them in the soil. In doing so, they both protect their eggs and enrich and aerate the soil. In ancient Egypt, they were seen as sacred, but even beyond mythology, their ecological significance borders on the sacred. Every year, millions of tons of animal dung are processed and reintegrated into ecosystems thanks to these beetles. This not only keeps environments clean, but also returns key nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus back into the soil. Carrion flies and carrion beetles. The unseen disassemblers, blowflies, family Calliphoridae, and carrion beetles, family Sylphidae, specialize in feeding on dead animals. They lay their eggs on carcasses. Once the larvae hatch, they feed on decomposing tissues. This accelerates breakdown processes, supports bacterial activity, and drives the carbon cycle forward. Carrion-inhabiting insects often compete and interact with each other, forming a micro-ecosystem on and within the carcass. The order in which different species arrive, and how rapidly they develop at different temperatures, are critical clues in forensic entomology. In criminal investigations, the development stage of these insects can help estimate the time of death. Larvae and microscopic partnerships. The larvae of certain flies do more than just consume decayed matter. They also transform bacterial communities and reduce pathogen loads. In this way, they provide both sanitation and a degree of disinfection. Many decomposer insects form symbiotic relationships with microorganisms that enhance decomposition. This collaboration reveals how deeply cooperative and interconnected natural systems are, even at the microscopic level. Ecological significance. Nutrient cycling. Organic waste is broken down and reintroduced into food webs. Soil health. Decomposition products enrich and structure the soil, improving its capacity to hold water. Disease control. Rapid removal of waste reduces the spread of pathogens. Landscape aesthetics. By decomposing carcasses and waste, these insects help nature continually clean and renew itself. These insects do not merely sweep nature, they act more like its digestive system. Mostly unseen and rarely discussed, yet utterly indispensable. Soil engineers, ants, termites, and the work of earthworms. Soil, one of Earth's most precious resources, is in many ways a living organism. The architects, engineers, and carriers that keep this organism functioning are the hidden heroes beneath our feet: ants, termites, and earthworms. Together, they build networks of tunnels and chambers that serve not only their own colonies, but entire ecosystems. Ants, the intelligence of social structure. Ants provide some of the most highly developed examples of social life. A single colony can consist of thousands or even millions of individuals. Each has a defined role: workers, soldiers, queens, making the colony operate almost like a single superorganism. As ants dig extensive branching tunnel systems, they aerate the soil, increase water infiltration, transport organic material and nutrients to deeper layers. The dead insects and plant fragments they move and store contribute to soil fertility. In agricultural lands, ant activity can act as a form of natural fertilization. Termites, silent builders. Though often labeled as pests, termites are vital ecological engineers, especially in tropical regions. They dismantle dead wood and plant material, turning it into humus-like substances. This process supports soil formation and enhances the availability of nutrients for plants. Their underground galleries serve as natural drainage channels, guiding water from the surface into deeper layers. Remove termites from a forest ecosystem, and water infiltration can plummet, with profound effects on vegetation. Earthworms, the circulatory system of the soil. Earthworms, though not insects, are indispensable partners in this underground engineering. Species like the red California worm feed on organic matter, digest it, and excrete a highly fertile material often called worm castings, essentially a concentrated humus. As they burrow, earthworms create air channels and work hand in hand with microorganisms. They also transport nutrients from deeper layers to the surface. Without them, soil literally cannot breathe. Ecological and human importance together: ants, termites, and earthworms. Increase soil fertility, support agriculture, aid root growth, reduce erosion and surface runoff, and create natural filtration systems in the soil profile. Modern ecology does not simply admire these processes, it also imitates them. Through biomimicry, scientists and engineers are developing new agricultural techniques and architectural concepts inspired by these subterranean builders. Thanks to these invisible architects beneath the ground, the life above the ground can flourish layer upon layer. Masters of pollination, bees, butterflies, and their allies. Roughly 2/3 of all plant species on Earth need external help to reproduce. That help comes from brightly colored blossoms' unsuspecting visitors, pollinating insects. Bees above all, but also butterflies, some flies, beetles, and even ants carry pollen from flower to flower, and thus sit at the center of agriculture, ecosystems, and human survival. Bees, the silent workforce of agriculture. Honeybees, Apis mellifera, wild bees and bumblebees are among the most effective pollinators on the planet. As they collect nectar, pollen grains cling to the hairs on their bodies and are transferred to other flowers, enabling fertilization. Without bees, crops like apples, cherries, almonds, pumpkins, and countless others would either fail to set fruit or produce dramatically lower yields. Over 70% of global agricultural production depends directly or indirectly on animal pollination, much of it by bees. They are not only honey producers, they are economic actors of enormous importance. Butterflies and moths, graceful messengers. Butterflies, with their long tongues, probe deep into flowers to drink nectar and, in doing so, move pollen between plants. In meadows, woodland edges, and open habitats, many wildflowers rely primarily on butterflies for successful reproduction. Night-active moths perform a similar role. The fact that many pale or white flowers open at night is an evolutionary clue to their ancient partnership with nocturnal pollinators. Flies and other overlooked pollinators. Flies, particularly hoverflies, and various beetles and ants also contribute significantly to pollination. In cold, high-altitude or high-latitude environments where bees are less active, flies often become the primary pollinators. This diversity shows that pollination is not the task of a single insect group, but a distributed function shared across many lineages. Importance for ecosystems and food security. Pollinating insects. Maintain biodiversity by enabling plant reproduction. Support agricultural yields and quality. Have immense economic value. Help sustain carbon storage through the continuation of vegetation. Yet intensive agriculture, pesticides, climate change, and habitat loss are pushing many pollinators towards decline. This is not only a crisis for nature, but also a risk for human food security. Even small actions can make a difference. Planting diverse flowering plants, reducing chemical use, and creating bee hotels all offer lifelines to these essential allies. War and balance, natural enemies, and biological control. Insects' ecological roles extend far beyond pollination and soil work. Some species act as natural enemies of others, keeping populations in check and preventing outbreaks. These predatory and parasitoid insects provide the foundation for biological pest control, an approach that makes sustainable agriculture possible by reducing dependence on chemicals. Predatory insects. Hunters of pests. Certain insects feed directly on other insects. Ladybirds, family Coccinellidae, are a classic example. A single ladybird can consume thousands of aphids in its lifetime, making it a powerful ally in fruit and vegetable production. Other predators include dragonflies, which prey on mosquitoes and flies, various soldier beetles, spiders, and praying mantises, ground beetles that hunt caterpillars, and other plant-feeding larvae. The presence of these predators reduces the need for pesticides and helps preserve biodiversity in fields and orchards. Parasitoid insects. Destroying from within. Parasitoid insects, especially certain wasps, families Braconidae, Ichneumonidae, and some fly groups, lay their eggs in or on other insects. The developing larvae feed on the host's tissues and eventually kill it. Harsh as it may seem, this is a perfectly natural mechanism of population control. Many parasitoid wasps specifically target agricultural pests, such as caterpillars and beetle larvae. Today, they are deliberately introduced into fields as part of biological control programs. The agricultural significance of biological control. Because chemical pesticides harm non-target organisms, contaminate soil and water, and pose risks to human health, alternatives are increasingly necessary. Biological control offers such an alternative. Pests are controlled using their natural enemies. Beneficial insects are conserved and supported. Ecosystems retain their complexity and resilience. In many countries, farmers release mass-reared predators and parasitoids into fields as part of integrated pest management, IPM, strategies. Keeping the balance of nature beyond agriculture, these interactions keep wild ecosystems stable. In a region with exploding grasshopper populations, for instance, an increase in their natural enemies can prevent a potential ecological and agricultural disaster. In this intricate web of interactions, insects are not only producers and pollinators, but also regulators of one another. Inspiration for art, medicine, and technology. Insects are not merely workers of the natural world. They are also sources of inspiration. For thousands of years, they have shaped art, driven medical innovations, and guided technological development. From luxury textiles to biomaterials and swarm algorithms, insects have left their mark across human culture. The silkworm, from fabric to civilization. The silkworm, Bombyx mori, is responsible for one of history's most coveted materials, silk. Originating in China as early as the 3rd millennium BCE, silk production spread along the Silk Road and became a symbol of wealth, diplomacy, and power. Silk fibers, drawn from silkworm cocoons, combine extraordinary strength, lightness, and softness. They have been used not only in textiles but also in surgery as sutures. Today, silk continues to inspire research in biotechnology and advanced materials. the lac insect, and natural biomaterials. The lac insect, Caria laca, produces a natural resin known as shellac, historically used as a sealant, polish, varnish, ink fixative, and even as a food glaze. Shellac remains valued in restoration work and certain food applications. Such insect-derived biomaterials are gaining importance as sustainable, biodegradable alternatives to synthetic chemicals. From insects to robots. Ant colonies, termite mounds, and beehives have also inspired robotics and artificial intelligence. Swarm algorithms mimic ants' foraging, or bees' collective decision-making to coordinate drones and robot fleets. Construction robots take cues from termite mound architecture to build self-organizing structures. Studies of insect metabolism and locomotion inform the design of micro-robots with ultra-efficient energy use. Thus, the insect world is not only a subject of biological curiosity, but also a blueprint for future technologies. Insects in art and symbolism. In art history and visual culture, insects appear as dense symbolic motifs. The scarab beetle in ancient Egypt symbolized rebirth and the power of the sun. In European tradition, ladybirds came to represent innocence and good fortune. In Japanese art, butterflies are associated with transience and beauty. From Renaissance paintings to traditional textiles, from sculpture to digital art, insect imagery has helped humanity think about life, death, luck, and the fragility of existence. Under threat, pesticides, and the loss of habitat. For millions of years, insects have been among the most adaptable and resilient forms of life. Today, however, human activities are pushing many species to the brink. Intensive pesticide use, habitat destruction, and climate change are driving worrisome declines in insect populations, threatening not just insects themselves, but the ecosystems and human systems that depend on them. The hidden impacts of pesticides. Pesticides are designed to kill harmful insects, but they rarely stop there. They also affect pollinators, predators, and many insects vital to decomposition and soil health. Neonicotinoid pesticides, for example, interfere with bees' navigation, learning, and colony stability, leading to collapses. Additionally, pesticide residues wash into streams and rivers, harming aquatic insects and larvae. Chemicals accumulate in soil, disrupting the life cycles of worms and decomposer insects. The death of non-target species creates imbalances that ripple through food webs. In trying to eliminate pests, we risk poisoning the entire ecological fabric. Habitat loss and monoculture. As agricultural land expands and forests, meadows, and wetlands are cleared, insects lose their natural habitats. Monoculture, the cultivation of a single crop over vast areas, reduces food diversity and eliminates the mosaic of microhabitats many insects need. Roadside verges, flower-rich field margins, and natural grasslands are disappearing. urban sprawl seals soil under concrete, erasing nesting sites and feeding grounds. Large-scale machinery and uniform cultivations damage the subtle architecture of insect life. Evolutionary adaptations that took millions of years to refine are being rendered useless within a handful of generations. Climate change and extreme conditions. Rising temperatures, droughts, and extreme weather events disrupt insect life cycles. Species are forced to shift their ranges, but may fail to find suitable habitats or host plants in new areas. Some pest species thrive under warmer conditions, while beneficial ones decline. Mismatches occur between the timing of flowering and the activity of pollinators. The result is a fragile and increasingly unstable ecological balance. The fate of insects is deeply intertwined with our own. Food security, soil health, water regulation, and biodiversity all depend on them. Cultural reflections. Insects in myth, literature, and belief. Insects do not inhabit only forests and fields. They live in our stories, myths, and symbols as well. Across cultures, they have been associated with death and rebirth, purity and decay, luck and wisdom. Their small bodies carry heavy meanings. The sacred scarab of ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, the dung beetle, scarab, symbolized rebirth and the eternal cycle of life. Its habit of rolling dung balls was likened to the sun god, pushing the sun across the sky. Scarab motifs appeared on burial masks, amulets, and seals, marking the hope of renewal after death. Ladybirds and good fortune. In medieval Europe, ladybirds were believed to protect crops from pests. Linked in Christian symbolism with the Virgin Mary, they came to be seen as bearers of blessings and good luck. Even today, finding a ladybird is widely considered a positive omen. Butterflies and the journey of the soul. In many cultures, butterflies represent the human soul. In ancient Greek, the word psyche meant both soul and butterfly. In Japanese aesthetics, butterflies symbolize the delicate beauty and transience of life. In Mexico, butterflies are sometimes seen as the returning spirits of the dead. Ants and the ethics of work. Ants appear frequently in fables and folklore as emblems of diligence and foresight. Aesop's tale of the ant and the grasshopper has taught generations about planning and responsibility. In many African and Asian traditions, ants also symbolize wisdom and the power of community. In literature and modern culture. In modern literature, insects often serve as metaphors for alienation, anxiety, or the uncanny. Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, in which Gregor Samsa wakes up transformed into a giant insect, remains one of the most powerful explorations of identity and social exclusion. In horror, science fiction, and fantasy, insect forms frequently embody humanity's fears about mutation, invasion, or nature's revenge. In all these ways, insects weave through both the physical and symbolic dimensions of human existence. Key players in an ecological crisis. The collapse of insect populations. In recent decades, scientists have begun to speak of a silent crisis, a dramatic global decline in insect populations. This is not simply the loss of a few rare species, but a systemic collapse that threatens the functioning of entire ecosystems. What the numbers show, long-term monitoring studies suggest that, in some regions, the total biomass of insects has fallen by as much as 70% over the last 30 years. Alarming declines have been recorded even in protected nature reserves. This crisis affects not only rare species, but also once common groups such as bees, flies, butterflies, and many beetles. A chain reaction. The decline of insects sends shock waves through the whole web of life. Birds that feed on insects lose their primary food source. Plants suffer from reduced pollination, producing fewer seeds and fruits. Soil processes slow down as decomposers disappear. Predators like spiders, amphibians, and small mammals face scarcity. The invisible cogs of ecosystems begin to fail, why we barely notice. Insects are easy to ignore. They do not sing in choruses like birds, nor do they fill our imaginations like large mammals. Their disappearance can go unnoticed until the consequences become difficult to reverse. Complex but clear causes. The collapse is driven by a combination of factors: pesticide use, habitat loss, and fragmentation, light, air, and water pollution, climate change, monoculture farming, and industrial land use. Together, these pressures break down reproduction and survival while eroding genetic diversity and adaptability. What can be done? Researchers stress the urgent need for action, shifting from chemicals to biological control in agriculture, protecting and restoring natural habitats, creating insect-friendly green spaces in cities, reducing light pollution, engaging citizens in monitoring and conservation. Insects are small, but their impact is vast. Without them, the machinery of nature grinds to a halt. Food of the future and a path to sustainability. Entomophagy and circular farming. As humanity moves towards an increasingly probable global food crisis, one of the most promising solutions comes from some of the planet's oldest inhabitants: insects. Entomophagy, the practice of eating insects, has been part of many traditional cultures. Today, it is being reconsidered as a key strategy for sustainability, ecological balance, and food security. Cultures that eat insects, more common than we think. Around 2 billion people worldwide regularly consume insects. In many parts of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, species such as grasshoppers, silkworms, mealworms, and ants are valued both as protein sources and as traditional delicacies. In the Western world, cultural resistance remains strong, but rising populations and resource constraints are pushing entomophagy into mainstream discussions. Why insects? Several factors make insects an attractive food source. High protein content comparable to meat, low environmental footprint, minimal land, water, and feed requirements, rapid reproduction, and efficient biomass conversion. rich in vitamins, minerals, and beneficial fats. To produce 1 kilo of beef, roughly 15,000 liters of water may be required. Producing the same amount of insect protein can require only a small fraction of that. Greenhouse gas emissions are also significantly lower. Insects in circular farming systems, insects, are not only potential food for humans, they are also important components of circular agriculture. Black soldier fly larvae convert organic waste into valuable biomass and can be processed into feed for fish or poultry. Mealworms can be used for both human food and organic fertilizer production. Byproducts from silkworm farming feed into cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and other industries. This closes loops in production systems, turning waste into resource and aligning with the principles of zero waste, regenerative agriculture. Industrial and global perspectives. Interest in insect-based proteins is growing rapidly. The European Union has approved several insect species as novel foods. Startups and food companies are bringing cricket-based protein bars, insect-enriched pasta and snacks to market. In this context, insects are not just a novelty, they are emerging as serious components of future food systems, helping to fight hunger, protect natural resources, and reshape how we think about nutrition. Insects. Sometimes we ignore them, sometimes they make us uncomfortable, yet they are the hidden pillars of life. They till the soil, pollinate flowers, recycle waste, and hold ecosystems together. They are not merely small creatures of nature, but living witnesses of millions of years of evolution. If we are truly searching for a sustainable future, we must recognize and protect the value of these micro-heroes. Because if they disappear, it is not only their world that collapses, ours does too.